Hi David, and welcome to Ascential Experts. Delighted to have you here with us today.
Thanks, David.
So you lead the WARC business from the content perspective. WARC joined the Ascential family in the summer of last year. Can you give us a quick description of what WARC is and what you deliver for customers?
Sure. So we're primarily an information business, and we work in the area of marketing effectiveness. So we give people the case studies, the research, the kind of best practice guidance they need to form more effective marketing strategies.
So I'd like to particularly focus on the Marketer's Toolkit, which you've just launched. And can you explain for us what it is in detail?
Sure. So the Marketer's Toolkit is something we've run every year at WARC since 2012. And for us, it's an opportunity to look ahead to the coming year, identify a few kind of big themes or ideas that we think are going to be really key in the year ahead. And that gives us an opportunity to use WARC's content, the case studies, the best practice, the research, to really help marketers navigate their way through those themes and form credible, effective responses. Now, over time, that has grown from initially it was just an editorial-led thing. It was us, getting together in a room and coming up with some kind of big things that were coming out of our content. I think that still plays a role, but what we're doing now is trying to back that with a lot more data and a lot more kind of research in the market. So this year's report will be based on a survey of 800 marketers and agency people from all over the world. And then that's a quant side, and then we add a qual side to that. We go out and interview a whole bunch of CMOs from different types of brands and different types of markets, and just kind of check that what we're saying or what we think is coming through the data resonates with them.
So from 2019's report, what have you seen come to life from that really blew through?
Yeah, so I think one of the big themes from last year, and it's been bubbling away for a few years, but last year we really saw people talking about experience a lot. This word experience suddenly became a kind of buzzword, and that really came through in the data and the kind of interviews we did. And we highlighted what we called a kind of experience gap. The experience people were offering online, and everyone's been inspired by the kind of digital native direct-to-consumer brands and how they offer an online experience. And then what was actually going on in the real world, in actual your real life experience of a brand. And we've seen a lot of talk around this, and the debate about customer experience has broadened this year into brand experience. We've just published a big report on that in November, and we think this is a topic that we kind of touched on last year that's now just all over the marketing world.
One of the things you picked out last year, I know, was voice, the rise of voice. How's that gone this year?
So voice is a really interesting one. We ask a whole bunch of questions in the Marketer's Toolkit survey about the relative impact of different technologies and what people expect different technologies to deliver in the coming year. And we'd seen voice kind of grow from year to year. But I think what we're seeing at the moment more broadly, in voice is part of this, is kind of a bit of a tech pause. So it's not that people aren't kind of investing in some of this new consumer tech, but what they're doing is being much more mindful about it. There's much less of a sense of, I've got to chase the next shiny gadget. There was a whole bunch of years where one year it was VR, one year it was AR, one year it was facial recognition. There's all some crazy new tech coming out. And the data gives us an opportunity to sense check that. Now, what we've seen with voice is actually not much more take up this year than we saw last year. And actually, we asked a couple of supplemental questions around voice, and the people who are using it feel they're really at the start of the journey. They haven't mastered it yet. They're doing it because they feel there's scope to it and value to it in the long term. But I think the use cases of voice are still really emerging. And so with that in mind, the marketers in our survey anyway largely don't see this as a major tech play in 2020 in the way that we're seeing with something like AI, where there are a lot more use cases emerging, and we know there's going to be a lot of investment there.
So David, we're seeing a lot of copy at the moment around the changing role of the CMO. and in fact the removal of the CMOs from some pretty big organizations. You've been talking to lots of CMOs during the research for this toolkit. What's your take on what's happening?
Yeah, so it's interesting, the CMOs we're talking to, they don't really see this as a problem or an issue. I mean, we have seen some brands take out the CMO role, but really what they're replacing it with, in many senses, is a classic marketing role. It's about understanding the consumer, understanding the brand, and understanding how a business can grow in its current environment. So while we're seeing changes in the nomenclature, if you like, in some respects, it reflects this kind of need for marketers to come back to a growth agenda. And the way they do that is through strong brands allied with strong performance. So where I think we see this as a trend, but I don't think it necessarily means the death of the CMO. I think if anything, it means that CMOs are getting back to what they should have been doing.
So let me cut to the chase. What are some of the big themes that you're forecasting for 2020?
So, I mean, some of them won't come as a surprise. You know, sustainability is a big theme at the moment. It's coming through in the data and the research. And I think it's interesting to see how brands are starting to really identify ways they can walk the walk within their category. Another area that's interesting is connected TV and the way that's going to bring a lot of quality inventory into the kind of programmatic environment. And the data has picked up a lot of kind of dissatisfaction with the way programmatic has evolved to date. So the impact of connected TV on the programmatic environment could be really interesting. The third thing I think I'd really pick out is, and it's really coming through from the interviews we're doing with the CMOs, is a belief that they've overinvested in performance marketing. Now, in the marketing space, it's a huge generalization, but there are seen as kind of two types of marketing. You've got the stuff that builds the brand, and then the stuff that kind of converts sales. And because all the digital techniques that have emerged over the last few years have allowed many more measurable ways to convert sales, a lot of budget has shifted into performance marketing, but arguably to the detriment of the brand and brand strength, brand health. So we're seeing a lot of CMOs now talking about trying to redress that balance and actually starting to put strategies in place for doing so. And that's great news for people like Cannes Lion, because an increase in brand building investment will hopefully mean a kind of increase in interest in creativity.
Great. I'm really looking forward to going through the whole report. Thank you very much, David.
Thanks, David.